Welcome to the Wine and Dime Pod, the podcast where we talk hoops and drink wine. I'm Chris and that's Lindsay, and we're with video for the first time. It's a nice change.
Yeah, we decided to celebrate that by drinking some sparkling wine this episode, and you can actually see us drink the wine this time. So you don't have to just take it in
Hey,
good faith that we're actually drinking it. We actually are. Yeah, so we chose some sparkling as well due to the theme of this particular episode, which is mid-season awards. So the NBA season is, about halfway, give or take. So we decided we'd have some fun with giving out some awards. But first, yeah, we got some nice sparkling wine. We got video. Life's
I
good.
saw the Golden Globes. I was feeling fancy. I'm not fancy enough to wear a suit. I am very much in a New York Knicks t-shirt, but had to throw a little celebration here. It's a weekend.
Well,
We're
it's
having a
it's
good
good.
time.
It's a special attire for you, especially today when they
This is business casual.
absolutely, yeah. Especially today as they absolutely destroyed the the Milwaukee Bucks, the NBA Cup champions.
Very prestigious award winners. They were no match for Madison Square Garden. Brunson dropped 44 in under 30 minutes. He looked insulted every time they put somebody on him one on one. Like he looked like he took it personally. They're like, how dare they let somebody take me without a double team? Like it was the disdain on his face was incredible. And he put the team on his back. They whooped that ass. 140 to 106.
Yeah, I didn't watch the game, I'll be honest, but the final score was rough. Is the NBA Cup kind of a curse? Like, do teams really want to win that shit going forward? Because I feel like things do not go very well for teams like after they win.
I
Like
think it's probably a
I
blessing for teams that like don't really have championship aspirations, but they're still pretty good. So like if you're in that Lakers Bucks tier, you're like, hey, I know we're not winning more than a playoff round right now, but if we can win that cup, a few decades down the road when the cup is culturally significant and we have that banner that says we won the first, second one ever, people are gonna look back on that fondly. Right now, it might not feel like much, but in 30, we're doing the 30th annual Kia Tough Acting Tinactin sponsored whatever the fuck NBA Cup, and they see, man, Bucks legend Giannis Antetokounmpo led the team to the second ever NBA Cup in league history in heroic fashion. They'll be like, wow, oh my God, like our team really has history. We run this shit. So it could be a blessing for these teams because they ain't winning no ring right now. That's for sure.
But at the same time, they feel like they have championship aspirations, so it's like it feels like a curse to them.
They feel wrong.
Because I agree, delusion, is a thing. They're all getting old, so there's some senility happening. It's fine. But the Bucks are an old ass team, and so are the Lakers for the most, well, kind of. But anyway, we'll get to them. But they're a little delulu. So, winning the NBA Cup to them is like, oh shit, it cursed us because have since both been absolute trash since they won the NBA Cup. But
Yeah,
yeah, you're right.
it's gonna be the climax
For
of their
teams
season.
for teams who are self aware enough to know that they're not winning an NBA championship, then yes, I agree. It's definitely a blessing, and especially once you're right, once the NBA Cup is actually a relevant thing that's going on, and not just something that's kind of weird and we're all still getting used to. But yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. It's just kind of funny where it's a little bit it seems a little cursed. At least right now
I'm
for teams
actually
who it seems like you're cursed to win it if you're a team who thinks you're a championship contender, but in
right.
reality you're not.
Right. I'm actually a little disappointed that we didn't at least make the final on that one because it just feels very part of like the Tom Thibodeau ethos to just like burn everybody for like 45 minutes a game to win this like mid-season tournament. It felt like that would be very much in his bag to have the team chase it harder than anyone else is chasing it, but unfortunately did not make it quite that far. But it's always next year. We could knock out one of these early cups hopefully.
Yeah, I'll
We
be
have a
honest.
bench.
I haven't particularly cared about the NBA Cup. The Raptors are objectively awful, so I don't really have hopes of winning anything until that's all sorted. So it's all good on the NBA Cup. I just haven't really
Might
paid that much
win.
attention.
I was gonna say y'all might win Cooper Cup, but I forgot his name was Cooper Flag. I was thinking
Cooper
of
Cup.
Super Bowl winning wide receivers, Cooper Cup.
I mean, he could
Yeah, there's
help.
there's too many famous Coopers for my
He's
liking
at
right now.
least an athlete. Maybe he'd help. I'm not really sure, but
He was a good hooper. He locked up some NBA player back in high school. I forgot which one. There's a clip that's been going around lately. He was a real good hooper.
okay, good to know. Did not know that.
Might be the third best guard in the Raptors. Who knows?
Well, yeah, we need some wings. It's bad. It's bad up in her. But yeah. Anyways, so how do you like the wine so far? So I guess we should probably talk about that since we just showed the bottle and moved on. It's not really fair to the fine folks at Ruffino who made this delicious sparkling prosecco rosé.
Actually, very nice. I don't really drink that many sparkling wines, so it's kind of a nice change of pace. Because I'm not usually hosting soirees in my little apartment, so it's a pretty cool change. Don't think I've had a prosecco rosé before. Definitely had both of those things, not together. Pretty
Fair
nice,
enough.
like semi-sweet, semi-dry at the same time.
Yeah,
You
it's
know,
like
I know it says extra dry, but it's not. It's a little misleading. It's extra dry for what it is, not necessarily an extra dry wine
yeah,
in the broader spectrum of wines. You know what I
for
mean?
sure. Yeah, for sure. It's very fruity while still being quite dry, but it's really refreshing. I really like sparkling rosés and prosecco rosés. I love sparkling wine. Sparkling wine is great even when there is no occasion. You can just drink it whenever you feel like it. Makes every moment feel kind of just fancier. And in the summer, like to be honest, most people, you kind of want to drink like seltzers and things that are like light and bubbly and kind of, refreshing. And sparkling wine is that. Like prosecco is honestly so good in the summer just to have as a drink because it's really refreshing and you can easily kind of dress it up. You can add more liquor to it if you want to just make a cocktail that's super refreshing, or you can just drink it on its own, or you can add like you can make mimosas, whatever. But it's really refreshing, and you can buy small bottles, so you don't have to worry too much about not finishing a big one. Which, to be clear, I don't really have that issue, but not
If you're
to brag
wondering,
or
is this the
anything.
wine for me? They advise it is best enjoyed in convivial moments.
Well, mid-season awards are a
Exactly.
convivial moment, so awards require sparkling. It's a celebration. We're celebrating, and I guess yeah, we're celebrating. We'll say that. Some teams, some different teams, and some players. So these are not your traditional season awards by any means. I guess we might as well just jump back into it. We'll talk about the wine more later. I just keep getting distracted, but it's fine. Anyways, these are not your traditional awards by any means. We're doing a little bit of a different approach. So there's a million other podcasts out there who are going to talk about MVP and Defensive Player of the Year, which I'm sure Victor Wembanyama has locked up at this point already.
They have locked up permanently,
But
frankly.
yeah, you can move over from one Frenchman to another. Uh, it's the French invasion of the defensive end of the ball. But
Yeah,
yeah,
you have to be from the DPOY region of France to win the Defensive Player of the Year award. It's
yeah, right. Yeah, yep. I like that. So, anyways, our awards are less serious than that, but still equally as important, I think. Yeah, these are important to the NBA landscape for sure. Very self aware awards. So, I'll let Chris get started here. What's your
so the
first midseason award here?
we have the Mess is Fun award. These are mostly movie TV quotes. A couple of them other things snuck in, but Mess is fun. But we got to go to Jimmy Butler. He is the messiest, the messiest king in the NBA right now, enlisting random coffee shop employees to sort of throw subliminal shots at Miami Heat management. It has been, it's been an adventure.
Yeah.
He wants to move on, and Pat Riley is a very stubborn old man, and he's not interested in trading. Jimmy, I think he may be relenting, but I don't know. People trying to take that contract. So it is about to be a whole saga, and it might not even end if any kind of resolution. He might just be there.
And it's not even just about his current contract, it's the contract he wants after. It's the fact that Miami won't extend him and he wants a big contract still. So it's a bit concerning. And the fact that he consistently likes to blow up situations is very fascinating. And I've always generally been on Jimmy's side. It's one of those things where it's hard not to be on some level, right? But sometimes the way he goes about things is like the collateral damage is really interesting. Matt, I want to say Miller, but I think I'm getting his name wrong. Um, runs a newsletter, anyways, Hardwood Paroxysm, and he wrote an article kind of about how Jimmy Butler might actually be the problem after all, like. And it was really interesting because it wasn't exactly like it wasn't, calling Jimmy Butler this like awful person or malcontent, but just that there is a bit more collateral damage than we see from his situations in terms of, role players who are trying to hang on because there's ripple effects, right? As soon as a player like that starts acting out. So it's really interesting, but yeah, Jimmy Butler likes the mess. So I guess for those of you who are not familiar with the quote, it's from Andy Dwyer from Parks and Recreation when, he's like, mess is fun. My life is messy and I love my life. And that's Jimmy Butler in a nutshell, for sure. He's not quite as happy go lucky as Andy, but he definitely likes the mess like Andy.
There's a latent silly boy inside of him. We've seen him with the big face coffee and the hair antics at press day and shit like that. But
Yeah.
he messy. Like he we don't nobody's forgotten the Timberwolves situation when he was just out there just cursing up a storm against the starters when he was running with the third string and just beating their ass. Like he wants things his way. He doesn't really particularly care if any feathers are ruffled or bridges are burned. He wants it how he wants it.
Yeah,
That's how he
for
gets
sure.
down.
Yeah, he's not afraid to take everyone down with him when push comes to shove. So we'll see what happens with Jimmy. Curious to see if he will get traded. I mean, it's challenging because he's a player people want,
Mhm.
especially one particular contender in the West who could use a player like him. And we'll come back to Jimmy will come back up. But our next award, actually, we're gonna stay down in Florida, is the Call the Ambulance but Not for Me award, which goes to the Orlando Magic. So you know that meme of the old guy, you call the ambulance, but then he shows up with a gun, but not for me. Yeah, that's Jimmy Butler. Or sorry, oh my god. That's the Orlando Magic. Also Jimmy Butler probably, but that's Orlando Magic in a nutshell this season. They've lost Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner to torn obliques. And now Mo Wagner as well. So whole Wagner family in shambles right now. Mo to a torn ACL, but Paolo's coming back. They survived this stretch with all of their best players not playing. Jalen Suggs has been incredible. They've gotten contributions from unnamed rookies that I've never heard of. They look like non-playable characters. Like they're it's weird, but hey, the Orlando Magic have found a way to soldier on, and they just do it by dragging you into the mud. They slow everything down. They just wail on you and hope the refs don't call every single foul. Like
It's an elbow first approach to basketball, and it's one that I appreciate. Honestly, as someone who grew up playing like on blacktops and shit, the job that Jamal Mosley's done out there, like I think you got a coach of the
it's commendable
year
for sure.
has got to start. If not, it's got to start with him. You got to put him first on the list. I don't know if he's going to win at the end of the season. There's some other guys who are doing great, but I think you got to give real strong consideration to coach of the year because that team has been short-handed, short-footed, everything for most of this
Short
season. They have
obliqued.
been
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, they are very short on obliques right now. They are almost out completely, but they've been soldiering on. Like it's
Yeah.
like the fucking the Monty Python bit with the it's just but a flesh wound, like two
The
legs,
dark,
both gone,
the
arms
Black Knight or
gone,
whatever. Yeah.
still fighting,
It's
still
only a
fighting.
flesh wound. Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And it's funny because the style of basketball they play, that elbows first approach, as you said, is very fun, frankly, to watch against good offenses. Less fun
Mm.
to watch against bad offenses because it's like they're just kicking someone while they're down. But and it's then it becomes like the game itself is kind of boring, but it's really fascinating against a really good offense to see how they can kind of just grind you into dust. And then they only need like one or two players to have really big games, so it could just be any rando who scores 25 and they can get over the hump because their defense just absolutely mauls you. And yeah.
Yeah, it's like every team meeting probably begins with, "Hey, they can't call all the fouls.
Yeah,
Like they don't want
absolutely.
this game to take 4 hours. They're gonna let some of these go,
Mm,
and they
for
do."
sure. And they have to. Yeah. They literally can't call every foul. They give me shades of the bad boy Pistons. You know, there's some
Mm.
shades of what Bill Lambier in there. Just let me just punch you because I can do it every time, and they're only going to call so many.
Spirit of Bill Lambier lives on
Yeah,
in Orlando, in
yeah.
Disneyland, in Disney World.
In Disney World, Florida seems like a violent place.
I mean, hey, those players got to walk past, their mansion, their swimming pools are probably populated with crocodiles and shit, or alligators. So they gotta, it's a fight every day. It's a fight every day.
Yep.
It steals them for the court. But on to the next one. I unearthed a pretty cool fun fact the other day. We joked a lot about how in 2065 all NBA first team is going to be five dudes named Jalen. The NBA right now, 16 of 30 teams have a Jalen of some spelling, and it's 3% of the league's players are Jalen's, and that's not even we're not even getting into Jadens. Like that's a whole other thing. But yeah,
Unbelievable.
so we decided to come up with the best and most improved Jalen awards for this one. And I
Two
was
separate
I was
awards, to
fully
be clear.
prepared.
To be clear.
Separate awards.
Yeah, separate.
Separate awards.
We have to award multiple Jalen's. There's too many Jalen's to not,
Yeah, yeah,
frankly.
honestly,
Like
they may well have their own team at some point.
it's like in football when you have to do the offensive and defensive rookie of the year because like it's not
Mhm.
fair to not. It's like this. We have to have two Jalen
Yeah,
awards because there are just too many Jalen's, frankly.
Entirely too many. And for best Jalen, I was certain that I was going to give this to Jalen Brown. I was trying to cast aside my personal biases, as we can see. He's the reigning Finals MVP, and then as I was preparing for the pod today, Jalen Brunson put up 44 points in 28 minutes on the Milwaukee Bucks head tops, and I had to flop. I had to flip over. It's got to be JB. He is the unquestioned best player on his team, whereas I guess you could say Jalen Brown is probably at maybe 1B, maybe 2 on Boston Celtics, depending on how you feel about Jason Tatum. Um, which is, I mean, honestly, he's almost a Jalen himself. The way he
Hmm.
spells Jason almost puts him into Jalen
Jalen
Jaden
territory.
category
That's
for
true.
me. Yeah, he's
It's weird.
awfully close.
He looks
Yeah,
like a
but
Jalen, actually, a little bit too.
yeah, he does give off Jalen vibes,
Hmm.
which is really interesting. But yeah, Brunson is, I think, the unquestioned engine for his team. He's like really the only on-ball creator, depending on how you feel about campaign. Which today feel great about campaign, but because he was awesome out there, but still a pretty limited player. So yeah, a lot depends on JB in New York, a lot, and it's hard not to give him the inaugural Best Jalen Award.
Congratulations to Jalen Brunson. So who wins most improved Jalen? Because there's also a wide range of age in Jalen's.
Hmm.
And I mean, even if there wasn't necessarily, everyone can improve. So who do you have as best Jalen award? Sorry, most improved. My bad. Most improved Jalen.
I think the most improved Jalen. I think we got to give it up to Jalen Johnson of the Hawks. And as much as I don't particularly like that team, I think the way he's been playing this year, he's gone from high potential youngster to like honestly kind of fringe all-star territory right now. I mean,
Hmm.
he's been phenomenal. I mean, we're looking at what is he averaging? About 20 points, shade under 20, 10 rebounds a game, shooting great. But the thing that's really shocked me about him is 5 assists a night. Don't
Yeah,
see a lot of power forwards getting 5 assists a night, especially ones his age. He's
and
getting more responsibility with the ball. He is a hooper.
especially not on teams that feature Trey Young, who is
Yeah,
frankly as ball dominant as he is, right? So yeah, Jalen Johnson's been a godsend to the Atlanta Hawks because they've been needing a player. Well, they've been
yeah, and
needing
not
any
only
good
that,
news that
but
they can
like
find, frankly.
playing with a traditional big most of the time and still getting 10 boards a night. I mean, even being a Dookie, I gotta give him his credit. He's been a real ball player out there.
Yeah, it's been pretty cool to see, actually. Especially, but I mean, even then, the Hawks have still sort of remained mediocre at best, frankly. They're always somewhere in the middle of being not good. So they need any good news they can find, and Jalen Johnson has at least been that good news.
Yeah, they're 500 now, which in the East is plenty, I guess. It's been a little rough on that side of
That
the country lately.
that's like the motto of the Atlanta Hawks. It's good enough. um, on a different note, entirely actually, but still in the East, I'm gonna hand out the Lucille Bluth. I don't know who that is, and I don't care to know award for a player who, frankly, forget about on a regular basis. It's kind of the mighty have fallen situation. So this award goes to Ben Simmons because every time I see him on a basketball court, I'm like, wait, Ben Simmons? Shit, you're still alive. Wow, okay. Interesting. And it's weird. Not a fan. I don't know. It's a strange situation. The Brooklyn Nets are definitely a dumpster fire, but Cam Johnson's been fun, and I hope that he gets freed soon.
I knew Ben Simmons was on the team. I knew he'd played some this season. I checked just now. He's played 27 games. Like I had no idea he'd spent that much time on the court this year. But it's my understanding at 25 minutes a game too. Like he's clocking some time. He's doing stuff. He's still allergic to shooting, which hasn't really
Yeah,
changed.
and that's the thing. Like we watched a couple of the Raptors Nets games, and you watch him, and you're like, huh, he's out there. He is a person running up and down that court, and that is about the best thing you can say for him because he's not doing a whole lot.
He averages more assists than points, which is a rarity in the scoring point guard era, and that's everyone taking step back threes and
What
stuff. I
are
mean,
what
he
are his
averages six
averages this
points
year?
and 6 points, 6 points, 5.2 boards, and 6.9 assists. It's giving like super tall Rondo, but also like a little bit less dominant Rondo, if that makes any sense.
It's like end of career Rondo.
Mm. Lakers Rondo,
Yeah, yeah,
but
but
not
not
on
the
a winning
bubble,
team
not the
and
bubble
competing for a
Rondo.
championship.
Yeah. Yeah, or that. Yeah, it's been not great, frankly. You kind of hoped that
Current day
once,
Mark Jackson vibes.
yeah, you kind of hoped that when he got traded to the Nets, that he would maybe start cooking again. And I was never, to be clear, I've never liked Ben Simmons that much or cared that much about Ben Simmons necessarily as a basketball player. He plays for the Sixers. Just thought he was always annoying, kind of. Don't care all that much, but it's just, you sort of, as a person, you kind of hope someone can come back from, frankly, what was a humiliating end in Philadelphia, which seems to be a thing when you leave
Yeah,
Philadelphia.
they love those. They love those.
Yeah, Ben Simmons, Markel Fultz, they love to humiliatingly jettison top draft picks that they invested. It's interesting,
That's
but
not that's not the fan base to shit the bed in front of either. Like I was watching a little bit of
it's
the
terrifying.
Eagles Packers game before this, and I saw the Eagles get booed up by 10 points. Like this is not a fan base that is going to tolerate goofy playoff collapses. I mean, I guess they kind of have to because it's not like they can really pressure the front office that much, it turns out. But yeah, they're not gonna be happy with you. They're gonna run you out of town, or at least try to.
One of my all-time favorite things from Abbott Elementary is Melissa Schmetti shows up to school one day and she's like kind of dressed up. She's wearing a blazer, she's a little more dressed up than usual. And someone's like, "Oh, why are you all dressed up?" And they give some kind of interview or something, and she's like, "No, I got a court appearance for throwing a corn cob at Ben Simmons," and it's just like, yeah, that encapsulates the Philadelphia sports fandom experience. Or actually, another time in the show, Mr. Johnson, the janitor, buys her a Cowboys bobblehead as a Secret Santa present, and they're both Eagles fans. And Melissa's like, "The hell?" Kind of looks at him, and he's like, "For you to destroy however you choose." She's like, "I get to use my blowtorch." And it's, yeah, Philadelphia sports fans are terrifying. So I can't imagine flaming out in front of them or maybe struggling and then the team like absolutely not supporting you. Because that happened really to both Simmons and Markel Fultz. And as much as I don't particularly love Ben Simmons as a basketball player, he still kind of got did dirty by the
A little
Sixers. Like
bit.
they kind of fucked him over. It
I
was not
forgot
a,
about Fultz. He
yeah.
kind of had a little revival with Orlando for a minute, and I have completely lost sight of where he is right now.
He's been injured, I think, but he's been pretty good in Orlando. At the very least, he's been like passable, right? He salvaged his NBA career. He's gonna be a really good backup, no matter where if he stays in Orlando or lands somewhere else. He's fits the vibe in Orlando really well. Everyone genuinely really loves Markel Fultz, so I really like Markel Fultz. I've always been on Markel
The,
Fultz Island.
the Google results have described him as an American basketball player who has last played for the Orlando Magic. So he may not even, I assume he's
Yeah,
on the roster, but he hasn't touched the court
I
or
think
something
he's
like
been
that.
injured this whole season, but I'm not 100%
That's
sure.
tough.
Anywho's,
He's
next
had some
award.
bad luck. He's had some bad luck.
It's not been great for him, but anyways, we got lots of awards to pass out here. So what do you got next, my friend?
We have the There's No Crying in Baseball award for the player who whines the most. I just gotta call it what it is. I gotta give it to Joel Embiid, incredible basketball player, man. But he made an ass of himself the other week, arguing some goofy call, getting kicked out of the game, absolutely just going apoplectic at this ref. And I'm just sitting there like, dog, you had to be held back. Like you can fight her? Like is that the vibe you're trying to give off right now? Like it was some goofy shit. And he's had a long history of both kind of dirty plays, to be frank, like grabbing Mitchell Robinson's leg while he was in the air and subsequently breaking his ankle is, not great. And so it's yeah, sometimes you worry about Joel. I mean, incredible player, but sometimes his head ain't quite where it needs to be.
Yeah, he is pretty, and I get it. Like we're all prone to just bad spells where you're just mentally not feeling great necessarily, or you kind of lose your shit and it happens and shit gets to you, especially all the injuries he's gotten through and a lot of the personal crap that was said about his family and whatever. He's been through a lot, but he's definitely a little bitch sometimes. Like I love Joel. He's really talented and everything, but he is very whiny and he flops a lot. There's no way that man ends up on the floor that often. A 7-foot man should not be on the floor that freaking often. Like,
Not a
brother.
7 foot, 300 pound dude who's like one of the strongest people in the league. Like sometimes I've seen him hurt himself from going down from flopping, which is kind of counterintuitive. Like when you have that injury history and you're intentionally hitting the ground that often, I know you want to draw attention to the contact, but dog, don't. It's hardwood. It's in the word. Like it's not softwood, man. Like you might really hurt yourself hitting the ground like that.
Well, and frankly, the problem is that it's not just him. He's hurt his own fucking like his own teammates. He ended Danny Green's career basically.
I forgot about that. I forgot about that.
Yeah,
That's tough.
he tore his ACL because Joel fell on him.
Ooh, that's rough, man. You gotta at least you gotta buy him dinner after that or something.
I hope he did. I don't know, but it's tough, right? I don't know. He's talented, but he's just oh my god. It's more annoying than Marcus Smart being a flopper because Joel is so much more talented.
Yeah, yeah. Marcus Smart kind of has to do that to be a high impact guy a little bit. I mean, he's still good at other aspects of defending, but
But it has to
I
be an
think
important
to
skill in his game.
right, it has
Whereas
to be in his bag. Joel does
Embiid's
not
gonna
need it
get
in his bag.
fouled by nature of the fact that he's just a really good player, and
Yeah,
he can draw fouls in the James Harden way, which is still very annoying.
throw your head
But at
back.
least, but at least
Ah,
it's yeah. But at least it's not like straight up flopping around on the floor
mm,
and just being obnoxious and irritating.
yeah. The verbal flop and the arm flailing is usually enough. You know what I mean?
Right? And
A little bit of some of
I
this.
appreciate that Jokic has kind of moved more in that way. It's a little more ethical than the previous because he used to flop around a little bit when he was younger. I think figuring out how to sell contact in the NBA, and he's figured out how to do that now. I mean, barely because he still comes out with some claw marks. I'm sure Embiid does too. Like it's pretty wild how much contact they allow on the post versus on the perimeter. I
Oh
think
yeah.
it's one of this is a hill I will continue to die on. Is that they guard or that they the post so much differently than the perimeter, and it pisses me off. It's not fair how they hand out fouls for like blowing on somebody wrong. You breathe
Mm.
on someone too hard on the perimeter and you get called for a foul. Meanwhile, you can like actually draw blood in the post and it's totally fine. So,
More or
anyway.
less. More. I mean, Shaq talked about this for a long time. He got the his own special treatment from the refs where, because he's big and strong, he gets penalized for being big and strong. Somebody will come up and just like punch the shit out of him, and it's no call.
Yeah.
But then, if he touches somebody, if he blows on somebody, they get to do their little flop and it's a foul. But at the same time, like, there's other ways. Diving on the ground is you're putting other people at risk a little bit there.
It's been difficult for a long time. Like, it's not a unique problem to this NBA. The difference, I think, though, is that in Shaq's time, the perimeter was also a little bit more like it was a little more physical on the perimeter than
Mhm.
it is now, for sure. I feel like it's a little soft right now. I use the S
Yeah,
word,
the
but
hand check era of just putting both paws on somebody while they're trying to dribble past you.
yeah, like I don't really want hand checking back, but I also would like for
I
there
actually
to.
kind of do. I'm not gonna lie. Just because
I
there's
just
so
want
much space now that I feel like it might not be.
as
I feel like the
bad.
hand check might not be that impactful, if that makes sense. Like I feel like it might not be
Yeah,
as overpowered as before.
that's fair. Actually, something I'm not like opposed to the hand check necessarily. I just something's got to give defensively. I just
Yeah,
need there to be more physicality allowed on the perimeter, so you can
yeah,
kind of bump guys a bit more and kind of just like keep them out a little bit easier because like it is brutal how you touch somebody and you get called for a foul, and it's obviously also stars get more calls, whatever. But it's really crazy some of this foul baiting, especially on the perimeter when it's like you have to be able to defend somehow, and
right.
they already are so many defenders are already at so many disadvantages that it's like you need to allow a little bit of bumping and checking and stuff here and there. Not
Yeah,
obviously like tackling people or whatever, but you need to allow a little bit more contact than is currently
yeah. They got
permitted.
defenders at such a disadvantage that there are people who are convinced that nobody in the NBA plays any defense, which is it's something that people have been complaining about for decades, but who don't really like watch the game like that. But like, there's people
Yeah.
who really think, oh, they see 125 points scored. The other team probably didn't try on defense. Like, no, man, they tried. They just, what the fuck were they gonna do?
Well, and then there's
Like,
the
I'm
math
sorry, I had to cover
disadvantage.
25 feet and two people at the same time on this play, and I got roasted. Like, that's kind of what's gonna happen in that scenario when
And
everybody's
that
good.
and that teams are more likely to shoot a three.
Yeah,
Right. So you're just automatically giving up 50% more points for every 3-pointer that someone takes or
yeah.
makes.
The
So,
highest
yeah.
pace since the 80s. More
Mm-hmm.
shots equals more points. Like, I covered a game recently where both teams had over 100 field goal attempts.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was a fucking track meet. It's like, yeah, points are gonna go up. Like the field goal percentages aren't dramatically different. Points are going up though because they just
From
shooting more.
three, I mean, I guess from three, they're probably higher to some extent because
Yeah,
there's just more. But yeah, still, yeah, I agree. It's some kind of some kind of change needs to take place just to allow a little bit more advantage to defenders because I don't necessarily think that the 3 point line is the problem. I think the fact that there's no, and I don't want to ever sound like those like old man yells at clouds kind of person
Mm.
regarding defense in the NBA because I think sometimes, to your point, it kind of goes that direction. But I do think that there's something to be said for allowing a bit more contact and allowing for there to be more defense played, frankly, on the perimeter, right? Like to allow somebody to kind of like actually bracket their person a little bit more because you can just be a little bit closer to them. You can get around a screen a bit easier. But I also think that there needs to be some better friggin' screen set because there's a lot of bullshit being allowed. And then they
So many
don't
moving
call,
screens.
they do not
So
call
many.
they do not call moving screens very often. And then so
Mm.
when they do, you're like, well, this is a joke because you allowed like 17 moving screens before this. And now you're
It's like
calling
holding
and
in football.
yeah.
They hold on every play, but you don't call them all. You only call them when they're super egregious. Because
Yeah.
every screen is a moving screen. Like they're
Yeah.
always getting a little, at least a little bit of like a hip to the side. You know what I mean?
Agreed. So I do think that defensive players should be able to have a bit more of an advantage. So maybe call more of those fouls, right?
Right.
Like or those plays. I don't know. But anyways, I guess we should continue on our rather than being geriatric millennials yelling at clouds, we should continue our award ceremonies here. I'm gonna go with a slightly more positive award, and I'm gonna go with the Ron Swanson I Know What I'm About Son award, and that's for Nikola Jokic, one of my favorite players, and generally just a really amazing player around the league who is kind of just doing his thing this year. He's got some Ron Swanson qualities, Swanson-esque, like you said when we were just chatting offline. His horses are like Ron Swanson's woodworking. He just wants to hoop and go home. He also trusts himself. He trusts his gut. I think I'll give him some credit, and I'll give the Nuggets credit, and frankly, actually, Michael Malone is included in this. Like Russell Westbrook's been a revelation, and everyone roasted them for bringing on Westbrook, and now
Thought it
he's
could be
better.
cool. I didn't know if the rest of the team, I think in a vacuum, I was like, oh yeah, Russ and Jokic makes sense.
Well,
But I was
yeah,
like, is there enough shooting around them to make it work?
hasn't mattered.
They put him in the starting lineup and he's been grooving.
It has not mattered, frankly. Well, I mean, MPJ has been hitting more shots lately, and I haven't really checked in on Jamal Murray, but I suspect he's hit a few more. But it's
Mm.
really fascinating how Jamal Murray has been worse than Russell Westbrook. And it's funny because Russell Westbrook just had an interview saying that, Coach Malone and the Nuggets have let him actually play like himself. Whereas
Right.
in other places, he was trying to change and he did his best, but at the same time, he was not being put in positions where he could really actually
Yeah.
like
Malone said
play
you
his
can't just
game.
put him in a corner. It's a waste. You know what I mean? That
It
he's kind of
is.
little slight dig at other teams, but yeah.
But I mean, I also think that it works when you have a player like Jokic who can literally just do so much to. Because Jokic's whole shtick is elevating the people around him, which is
Right.
ultimately, you could argue, what Ron Swanson does with the cast of Parks and Recreation. Because even though he is a disengaged boss, he lifts everybody up around him.
He's like the straight man that everyone else bounces off of too, because
Uh huh.
everyone else is like pretty loony.
Absolutely. Yeah, you need
Yeah.
a pretty straight faced dude. I mean, the irony is that Jokic is not a straight faced human whatsoever when it comes to like off the court. He's definitely got a sense of humor. But yeah, I think that he's been kind of lifting all boats, and I think that him and Russ has actually been a very fun pairing. Their friendship off the court has probably helped because they've been able to develop chemistry easily in that sense. But I think that, frankly, like Jokic and Russ, their games are actually extremely similar at the end of the day. Like, you don't lead the league with that many triple doubles, the two of them, for no reason. You have to play a pretty similar game. The hilarious part is that it's a 1 and a 5 doing that, not like two
Yeah.
wings who are pretty comparable or two bigs or two guards. It's like a 1 and a 5, like the two most disparate positions who are like actually playing the most similar game.
Well, you got a five who plays like a one who plays like a five.
Yeah,
You know what I
right.
mean? Like that's
Yeah,
that's really what it is. They're the most
yeah.
positionally unique guys in the league, probably outside of like Josh Hart, I guess, who is a center.
They're like the
Like
funniest
genuinely.
fit. They're like the funniest fit in the sense that like their strengths and weaknesses complement each other. It's just
Hmm.
the wrong way. Like you expect the guard to be able like to handle, okay, cool, like my passing and shooting can elevate the big man's like athleticism and
Right.
rebounding or whatever, right? But instead it's actually like the other way. Although
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
both
yeah.
actually objectively good rebounders. Russ absolutely benefited from Steven Adams boxing everybody out, but at the same time, he's a very good rebounder. He actually does
Right.
like he is a very skilled rebounder. regardless. And so having both of them on the court actually is really helpful because the Nuggets are not great at rebounding outside of Jokic. It's just like a miracle that he hoovers up so many of them sometimes. But Russ, yeah, it's been really fun actually. And so Jokic gets the I know what I'm about son award because he I think deep down like what works and he doesn't exercise a lot of control over the Nuggets front office, but I think when he speaks like they listen. You know, you
Yeah,
can't have a player like him and not. And I do trust him because he's not trying to play GM. I think he just has input about things that matter. And I think he sensed that the team kind of needed a presence like Russell Westbrook, not just on the court, but off the court. They need energy. They need someone who's a veteran. He's been around, you know, he's going to provide some energy. He's going to help those young players like Christian Brown and them kind of like come
yep,
forward. And Russ and Christian Brown, you know, there's a lot of like fake news about the number shit
right.
beginning of the season, but they've been really tight, and Russ is notoriously good with young players. So, but he's also managed to be a very good help on the court, and I
Right.
think the fit has gone much better than any of us could have imagined. And maybe it's
It's
temporary, like Russ's other good stretches, but the Nuggets have needed it.
it's been really cool to see because like it is in that like late career like tour he's kind of been on where he's kind of bounced around different teams. Like the on-court fit and his play haven't been great everywhere. It's been better at some, like he did good with the Wizards and the Clippers, less good with the Lakers, right? But one thing that's been constant is that at every single stop, all of his teammates fucking love that dude. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like every single one of them has been like he is the best teammate, the best dude. You know, so it's really easy to root for him. You know, even when he was like struggling on the fancier side of LA basketball and a couple other stops, like it was still, it's easy to root for Russ, and it's cool to see him having this, this kind of season
And
at this point in his career.
the vibes on the court have seemed genuinely better too than the other stops. Because even though his teammates loved him and stuff, there was always just frustration, I think, about the situation that you could sort of just sense. There was like a little bit of like his play ebbed and flowed a little bit more. Whereas in Denver, like he's been pretty consistent. He struggled at the beginning of the year, and he's had obviously some slumps. Every player does, unless you're Jokic, really. For the most part, you have some slumps here and there, but he's been a lot more consistent. And I think like this taking off situation has actually been a bit of just like him and Jokic still had to figure out how to play together. And now they've like unlocked something, and it's dangerous. Like,
Mind
'cause I
meld is
even watched
beginning now.
like I
They're
watched
twinning.
I watched like the last 20-30 seconds of the game against the Mavericks today, and it was like in the last 20 seconds of the game, and Jokic like had a nice little wraparound pass to Russ for a dunk, and it was just those little chemistry things where you're like, oh yeah, like they figured out how to play next to each other. Not that you ever
Yep.
doubted they would, because they're both super intelligent, but there's always been questions about whether Russ would change his game, right? To fit around other players. I think the best part is that he hasn't actually had to change much to fit in with the Nuggets because the things he's good at help in an offense when you have a player like Jokic, right? Because Russ has always been like an okay cutter. It's not like he just stands around waiting for the ball. Not a great screener necessarily, but that's okay. They have tons of good screening players. Russ can be creative and like be that relay passer, keep the ball moving. It's always really positive, and it's basically like you said, yeah, they're twinning. So
It's
yeah.
to go back to Jokic real quick. I saw some pretty crazy stats tweeted out yesterday about Jokic.
Mm-hmm.
They're still accurate because they haven't played another game since. But he's 4 assists away from averaging 10 assists a game for the season, which will put him at a triple double. 31.6 points, which is zero point 0.1 away from first in the league behind Giannis. Uh, he's leading the NBA in 3-point percentage at almost 48%. As a center, who was also hitting like 56% from the field. He's averaging 13 boards, which is third in the league. He's top 10 in steals.
Wow.
What the fuck? It's not normal. It's not normal.
That is not normal. What the fuck?
He's keeping those ESPN stats people like employed. They're dropping fun facts like every game because he keeps doing some new shit that nobody's done
I
ever.
mean, he's keeping most people at the Denver Nuggets employed, frankly.
The front office is real good. They're having the finest dinners in the Mountain West region off of
Yeah.
that man's efforts. So I think if you're the GM who drafted him, man, you're probably getting jobs for the rest of your final.
Tim Connolly? Yeah.
Yep. He will never be
Although
unemployed at this rate.
he might ruin his job security by the fact that he traded for Rudy Gobert
I feel like ownership in their tight pockets might have had something to do with that, unless it was his idea then. I know they're repeater tax avoidant.
in Minnesota.
Mm,
Yeah.
They didn't want to deal with all that shit. I think they've
No,
always
but the
kind of been
fact
a
that they traded
frugal
for Rudy
front office.
Gobert just to trade away Cat, like, kind of weird. But anyway,
Yeah, one of those things is a
Tim
little better than the other.
Tim Connolly doing some weird shit, but he did draft Jokic, so credit
But
to him.
but how do we talk about the least second leading scorer? Number one, Giannis Antetokounmpo, man, the other Black Greek out there besides myself. He gets the fine work award for doing fine work. He is somehow quietly leading the NBA in scoring at almost 32 points a game, which is a weird thing to say because he's a former MVP. It's not like it's in obscurity and some team no one has ever paid attention to, like he's won a championship with them. He's shooting
Mm-hmm.
60 fucking percent from the field while he's doing it. Like 60% is borderline like, oh, I'm a offensive rebounds and putback guy territory. You know what I mean? Like I'm a guy who my teammates create all my shots for me, and a big man who's there to dunk and maybe occasionally shoot a mid ranger when I'm wide open. Like 60% at 32 fucking points a game is it's absurd. And 12 boards and 6 assists, still an impactful defender, even though he's got some of the fires he has to put out for the Bucks are a little bit too big these days because their perimeter defense is, as today's game evidenced, pretty fucking bad. It is really, really not good. So, but still, he's been
It's
he's been outrageous this year on a team that's probably not really going anywhere, but he's just out there plugging away and quietly kicking everyone's ass. But nobody even really seems to be talking about him for certainly not for MVP and or really at all.
yeah, it's been rough over in Milwaukee. It's funny because I can kind of Giannis and Jokic have a lot of similarities in their situations in some ways in terms of like they won a championship and then things just kind of slowly fell apart after. And it was like amazing they finally won that championship. You know, it was this big sigh of relief of like, okay, great player wins ring. Now we can really respect them as this great player. And then they've continued to be amazing, but they've kind of fallen off slowly but surely. And it's been worse in Milwaukee. It's been a faster drop off because the team is just older and they've had fewer resources. They had to spend so many resources just to get to the championship. Whereas the Nuggets have at least spent more resources or all their resources on younger pieces for the most part. Less, still same kind of lack of flexibility, but at least slightly different. But same sort of vibe in a way where it's like that amazing player just kind of like holding shit together. And yeah, Giannis has been amazing. So this one's kind of a callback, I guess, to our little dunk drawer days with the TikTok video.
Not for the old podcast.
Pour one out for pick and pop culture. But yeah, Giannis got the Fine Work Award last time too. So Giannis basically is Stanley Hudson. He's basically the Stanley of the NBA.
He is developing a little bit of like ornery vetness when he's not making silly dad jokes. There's a
Yeah.
little bit of that starting to come in. I think he is a little tired of the
I
the mediocrity out there in Milwaukee right now.
I can't wait for him to ask Doc Rivers if he stuttered. Did I stutter?
He probably wants to practice, to be honest. Like
At
it's
least, yeah.
he's
Oh,
probably every time he reminds Doc that, sir, you are actually bald, probably has to repeat himself several times.
he really does.
I just don't know how
Um,
you bald and you got to shape up. Like him and Chris Paul I apparently go to the same barber. Like I don't I don't know how he got a reputation for being the specialist who does that. He's like, yeah, no hair. That's cool. I get your edges looking right. Don't worry about it.
that's a niche as hell profession to be in.
They can
Barber,
afford hair plugs. They
barber for
got
bald,
LeBron has a guy. They know LeBron. Both of them know LeBron.
barber for bald guys, I guess. Niche, niche thing to be doing with your life.
They're ball
I guess.
deniers. Time to
Sorry.
time to come home. Time to come home.
Wow. Yeah. Anyway, moving on. Our next award is the Eagleton You Blew It Super Hard Complete Buffoonery Award. So this one is from the famous, well, the best one of the best scenes in Parks and Recreation when Leslie is gloating because Eagleton has to, well, they're broke, and so Leslie's gloating, and she says, you know, you blew it super hard, complete buffoonery. And this one is going to the Phoenix Suns because, like, less than 5 years ago, they were in an NBA Finals, and then
They sure
now
were.
they're here. They're benching Nurkic for Plumlee in this
They
year
were
of
up
our
2-0
Lord.
in said finals.
In
They
this
were they were about to cruise their first ever championship in franchise history.
in this year of our Lord 2025, they are employing Yusuf Nurkic and Mason Plumlee, and they benched Nurkic for Plumlee.
Benched Bradley Beal too, a guy on a fucking supermax contract.
That they traded a million second round picks for. Yeah.
They sure did.
And put
I
themselves in like this
oof.
cap hell situation. Very highly questionable decisions have been made in Phoenix, which is unsurprising because it felt a lot like when the Suns started being successful, they were just like, much like the Timberwolves feel a little bit right now. They're
Mm.
covering over, and even the Sacramento Kings. Having a modicum of success has covered over the jankiness of who those franchises have always been. The Suns have been a disaster, like objectively, they have been a disaster for so long. And then they got Chris Paul and Monty Williams and immediately became not shitty for a couple of years. And then they went for it and fucked it up real bad.
And look at Chris Paul helping a team ascend to a slight winning record for the first time in like almost a
A long
decade
time.
too. By the way, he's still plugging away and still having a little bit of an impact. Uh, just want
Love
just
that
want
boy,
to
by the
point
way.
that out.
I'm still a big fan of him going to San Antonio. I think he was the right choice. But anyways, the Phoenix Suns are, yeah, they're an abject disaster. It's not good. They
There's been
can't
a
do
lot of shitty
anything.
personnel decisions. A lot. Like
I
I
mean,
know Aiton was weird and like a lot of times disengaged, and he wasn't going to really live up to the potential of a normal number one pick, especially in a draft where like Trae Young and Luka Doncic went. But that one season, it's hard not to think about that one season where they went to the finals and Aiden looked fantastic, shooting like 60%, putting up like 18 and 10. He looked like a dynamic defender who could defend the post. He did really good on Jokic. He could also defend space in the pick and roll. He looked, at the very least, maybe not a perennial all star, but a guy who might get one or two and just be like a really good third player, right? And he regressed immediately after that, and they shipped him out for Yusuf Nurkic, who is kind of allergic to attempting layups sometimes, and also just has his foot speed is just shot. Like he is out there getting roasted, trying to defend in space. He's not impactful. He's been benched now. It's been a sad sight. Traded a billion things for Bradley Beal, who was already looking semi-washed at the end of the last couple seasons in Washington, constantly injured, athleticism starting to go, efficiency starting to go. Like they put themselves in a situation. There's no fucking draft picks to trade. They're way past the second apron. They can't like aggregate players in trades. They can't take back more salary than they're sending out. So the only thing they can do to improve in the short term is like, okay, can we trade Beal for the exact same amount of money that Beal makes?
mm-hmm.
Probably not, right? That's really hard to do. So all they can do is blow it up unless they figure it out on the court with a pretty thin roster. Are they
Yeah.
going to trade Booker, who like the franchise loves? He loves playing in Phoenix. He's going to be their all-time leading scorer soon. He's like 300 something points away from being their
Yep.
all-time leading scorer. Do you trade him away and blow it up and tell the fans that you're doing that? Like they put themselves in a really shitty situation. And I don't
And
know how much KD would
especially,
get back in the trade either. Like,
well, and the challenge is that they're under like really strict trade rules because of hitting that second apron, right? I'm
mhm.
not gonna sit here and claim to know any really much about the cap situation or like the cap itself or how it works, but it seems like they're not really in a position where they would even get fair value on someone like Durant or Booker because they can't really.
No,
Like they can't
they can
aggregate
only get back
anything.
less salary than they send out. And like,
Yeah.
maybe they can get some picks, but how many picks are you getting for like a 36, 37-year-old Kevin Durant
Yeah.
at this point?
I mean, he's still proven he can win, but at the end of the day, his contract's like pretty big still too.
And any team he would go to would be a contender thinking Kevin Durant gets us over the hump. So their draft pick's not even going to be worth. They might have two or three sitting around, but they're all going to be like number fucking 27.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
The challenge is
So
that for the Phoenix Suns to want to trade him, they're going to want to get back enough that any team's going to have to. It's the classic Kevin Durant conundrum. Is that you have to send out so much shit to get him, and because the Suns are pretty limited in how they can make trades, they have to accept limited stuff too. So it's like you're not even getting the best stuff, and then that team that gets him is like is also poor. I don't know. It's kind of a weird. It's hard to trade for Kevin Durant, and even
It's even
Devin
harder to trade
Booker.
away Bradley Beal. Yeah, he might not be going nowhere. He has a no trade clause, and nobody wants his contract.
Oh no, he's stuck in Phoenix. I mean, at least they have Grayson Allen out here doing Michael Jordan reverse layups. That's like the best we
Ryan Dunn
can.
was a good first round pick. They nailed their first round pick this year. Unfortunately, it has not mattered. So
Yeah,
sub 500 with three guys on max deals.
and they even have pretty good coaching, so it's not even like you can blame coaching. At this point, it's definitely a roster construction issue. Because Budenholzer's a good coach, and he's one of those coaches who's notorious for maximizing whatever's on that roster, right? I mean, look how fast he turned around the Bucks with very little personnel change. So
Right?
he's done this before. It's not like he's a terrible coach who can't do that. It's just that there's not much on this roster to turn around, frankly.
Shit, even Vogel, who they got rid of real quick, was a championship coach.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not looking so sunny in Phoenix, unfortunately.
No, it is not. But. Word.
So we're giving out the John Wall Memorial. I ain't never ever seen you act like this before award to the Cleveland Cavaliers. Everybody had doubts about these guys. They kind of seemed like they were perennial playoff team, but not really that good. They got smacked around by the Knicks a couple of years ago. They weren't really contenders, even though their records would be good. People had doubts about is Donovan Mitchell really a number one? Do they have, the requisite amount of shooting around their main stars? Can Evan Mobley and Jared Allen actually be a starting front court together for a contender in the modern NBA with the way it's played? And it turns out all they needed was another offseason and they got that shit figured out. Mobley's looked incredible. They've gotten enough productivity from the wings, even with injuries, to kind of make everything work. I mean, shit, everything has just been, it's almost the same roster, too, really. There hasn't made any major personnel changes. It's just, everything is just 20% better now. And that's a testament to patience and continuity and letting these young guys grow. I mean, they look like they might be the real deal. That big game they had against the Thunder the other day, who've been running the West, they
Mm-hmm.
came out on top. They won the they won the meet off, man. Like I'm not gonna explain that one. Y'all can look that shit
Mm.
up if you want to. But
Jesus Christ. Oh my God.
they need to like
Um,
not be online anymore.
Bunk.
I gotta delete Twitter.
That's a bunk moment. Yeah, no, the Cavs look really good. They're kind of a testament to what coaching, the right coach and sort of situation can do for you sometimes. Sometimes it's not really about the player, sometimes it is. Like, I feel like a lot of times when a coach gets fired, it's usually not really because of the coach. It's,
Like,
covering up roster issues. But in this case, it actually probably was the coach. Like, I think that Kobe Altman was smart to bank on the fact that there is enough talent on this team, they should be better. Like the talent alone should get you further,
it's
right?
interesting. His bigger staff is in Detroit doing good things now.
Yeah, I think because Detroit's roster, frankly, just makes slightly more sense,
Yeah, it's less of
and
a
the type of
hodgepodge
basket
of random weird shit.
and the type he doesn't have two ball dominant guards to work into, so his
Right.
offense can work with a team like Detroit because you have Cade Cunningham and even Jaden Ivey, but before he got hurt, Jaden can easily kind of just like slot in there in a way, right? He's
hmm
not necessarily like an on ball guard all the time, so it works a little bit better where when you have Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland trying to find a system where both of them can easily. And I also think that, frankly, I don't know that Donovan Mitchell bought into JB Bickerstaff as hard as he bought into Kenny Atkinson. Because
hmm
Donovan Mitchell has taken a step back in his counting stats. He's sacrificed in order
Right.
to make this work, right? All of his counting stats are down. His efficiency is like up, but his counting stats are kind of down. He's scoring fewer points, things like that, because he's giving up a bit more control. I think because he realizes like we can win this way. So it's cool.
Marlon has
Cavs are
been
really good. They're really
great.
fun. Super fun to watch. I'm happy for Kenny Atkinson actually too, to be coaching a really good team.
Yep,
And
he deserves it. Deserves it. Has for a
yeah,
long time, even when he was an assistant.
yeah, like the Brooklyn situation was always kind of feel like he got a raw deal there. I think he really could have worked as a coach for those stars. Like I think he's a talented enough coach to coach stars. I just think personality wise, it obviously didn't work. But I'm happy for him because I felt like he kind of got a bit of a raw deal in Brooklyn, and after he drug that team from nothing, he got the reward of getting fired after the stars get hired. So I'm happy for him in Cleveland that he's fitting in really well.
It's looking great. And Garland, I mean, I think people forgot. Like, I think people thought he regressed. It was more just, he had that broken jaw. He lost a bunch of weight from not being able to like eat normally and stuff like that. He kind of had a fucked up season, but Garland's back. He's showing why he was, I think a first time All Star 2 years before, 2 years ago. So I mean, he's a legit point guard, and having him playing at the level he's playing at, and having Mobley playing the level he's playing at, I mean, Cavs are good. All right, we'll see what it looks like in the playoffs, but for right now. I don't see any particular reason to doubt them, and I would be most pleased if they matched up against the Celtics at some point. But unfortunately, if they're the 1 and 2, not until the conference finals. So
Yeah, well, that would be fun though if they can get there. I'm curious to see how the Cavs do in the playoffs for sure. I think that they're a much better. I think that continuity matters. I think they're a much better team. But speaking of the team that LeBron left Cleveland to go to, the Lakers are the winner of the. This is another Arrested Development award. The Dead Dove I Don't Know What I Expected award. This is seen in Arrested Development one. Michael opens the freezer and sees the bag that says Dead Dove, do not open. And then he opens it and then is like, I don't know what I expected. This is the Los Angeles Lakers. They are as mediocre as we thought they would be. They made a coaching change in the offseason. Brought in JJ Redick. Vibes seemed
nice
better.
for like 10 games.
Yeah, the vibes seemed better. It looked great. Yeah, vibes were better. Everyone was happy. They were playing better. Lasted for all of 10 games. Now they're exactly back to the same. The craziest things have been seeing the stats where it's like showing that JJ Redick and Darvin Ham have the same record as coaches at the same point, at the similar points in the season as last year and this year. And it's like, yep, there it is. Coaching wasn't the problem. Like, don't make me tap the sign. Coaching is not the reason for your mediocrity.
Taking that Lakers job, the bag must be so good because you're getting fired in like a year and a half.
Yeah.
You are.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do? That roster is, and it doesn't look horrendous on paper, but some of these other teams are just so much better built.
Yeah.
Like I think people forget how good some of these teams in the league are right now. There's not a lot of Lakers give off like mid 2000s team vibe where it's like, all right, we got like four really legit players and a couple other guys who are pretty all right. A lot of these other teams have like 8, 9 guys who are genuine like difference makers, and the Lakers just do not have that. And I don't know what JJ's supposed to do. He could talk about we're going to take more threes, we're going to play more up tempo. It's only so much you can do to paper over some of their issues, and I guess they finally got rid of D'Angelo Russell, who Lakers fans I'm sure have been complaining about for multiple stints of Lakerdom now.
Since they got him both the first and second time, yeah.
Yeah. Don't know how much it'll change.
He's just D'Angelo Russell's just following the influencer career arc of bouncing between New York and LA.
Yeah, ain't that the truth? Someone who lives in LA, the number of former New Yorkers is absolutely astonishing.
Staggering.
Absolutely astonishing. All complaining about the pizza scene in LA, which I could talk about for another 10 minutes if I really wanted to, but
fair enough. Another time.
The long and short of it is that there's good pizza in LA. It's just not convenient and available.
Interesting.
You can't just pull around the corner and get some. You have to go find it, which means you got to drive 20 minutes because it's LA, and that's how you get to anything. It's driving for 20 minutes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Anyways, well,
I noted LA defender Chris Harrison. That is
fair enough. Well,
that is me.
Except the Lakers.
Yeah, I was never a Lakers fan. My first youth basketball team was the Lakers. Was never a Lakers fan. Even as someone who had, oh my God, when I was like a little baby, we had like a Magic Johnson like plushie. Oddly enough, random thing to own, but
very.
Yeah, never latched on to the LA Lakers. Became a Knicks fan because Patrick Ewing was that guy, and they're roommates with the New York Rangers, who I was also a fan of at the time.
Chose James Dolan teams. Unfortunate.
Man, did not know that man existed at that time. Wish somebody had warned me. Like nobody clued me in on that one at all. I was just like, man, that big Jamaican dude is cool as hell. Like, also shout out to Marcus Camby. He's fun. Like I was blinded by the coolness of Latrell Sprewell.
It's one of those things. Blinded, yeah. It's one of those things where it's like, if you could give if older you could give past you advice, it'd be like, watch out for James Dolan.
There's different points in my life where sometimes I think like, I mean now we're in a good place as Knicks fans or whatever, But there's different periods in my life where I'm like, oh, if I had first gotten into basketball at this point, I feel like I would have been a fan of like X team, right? There was a period
Yeah.
where it was the Spurs. There was a period where I think the Memphis Grizzlies. I just gravitated toward them. There was a brief like Nuggets period, you know. But I'm still glad I'm a Knicks fan because we are there's some characters in the Knicks fandom, and where there are a bunch who follow the team even when they're dog shit, which is really fun because we're often dog shit. So.
The pattern is there.
There's no
Well,
apathy in Nick's world. There's no apathy. That is for sure. We are not forgotten even when we're bad.
no. It's the same for the Lakers, but I don't know that it's apathy. It's more just like pity. It's like
Hmm.
when the Lakers are bad, the media and everybody's kind of got that. It's like that the meme of the guy like poking the thing, like do something. That's kind
Hmm.
of like when the Lakers are bad, because everyone's like, oh, this cash cow is just absolute dog shit right now. We have to talk about them because they're the fucking Lakers. But man, they suck.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like we manufacture conversations with the Lakers because they make money and it's frustrating. And so, yeah, they're kind of the dead dove of the NBA season. So, yeah.
So never been to a Lakers game. Even as a former LA resident, I only went to a Clippers game. Shout out to Clippers for reasonable ticket prices. You know, salutes to y'all. Salutes to y'all. Doing the Lord's work.
All right. You want to hit us with the next award?
Yeah. We're gonna go with the Dr. Leo Spacemin Medicine is not a science award. We're gonna go. This is one of those ones where there were
Little
two
30.
candidates so strong that
Yeah.
we had to split it like how baseball does, where they do like the AL and NL Cy Youngs. We had to
Yeah.
give it to the Western Conference. We got to give it to the Pelicans, man. I mean, Dyson Daniels, who used to play out there, he described the franchise as cursed. Like that's not something you typically do in front of a hot mic when you know that you're on the record, but it really does feel that way. Like Zion can't stay healthy, Ingram can't stay healthy. Everybody's dropping like every other game. I mean, this was supposed to be a team that, you know, you remember the optimism from a bit ago where they were number one in the West for a little bit, and then the injuries started to kick in. Like I mean, they had one of the worst records in basketball, and like
And it's not
nobody can stay on
even
the court.
it's not even like ownership isn't investing in the team like they used to be the case. Like when Anthony Davis was there,
Hmm.
there was some discussion about how the Saints are the team that matters and the Pelicans kind of always got like a bit of a side. But like since Gail Benson took over, like they've like fucking been they care about the Pelicans. Like they've invested a lot in the Pelicans.
They're an expensive team.
And they just it's too much. There's too much voodoo in New Orleans. I don't know. It's like the only answer. If you, as soon as you're, honestly, it's the King Cake Baby's fault. It's King Cake Baby's fault.
I mean, you talk about cursed. Like that thing looks like somebody that would like, if a witch had like, you know, officially like given you a lifelong
Yeah.
curse. That's the shit that you would like wake up and see at the foot of your bed.
Oh
Like
yeah.
that's what you would see, and you'd be like, oh, that's how I know my spirit is like I'm not like able like my spirit will be stuck here on Earth after I die type shit. Like it looks
Yeah.
that fucking scary.
No, it's awful.
Even the
Yeah.
pelican looked a little creepy. Like the original one,
Pierre. Yeah.
that shit looked terrifying. Yeah,
Very. Mm-hmm. And even new Pierre is still a little sus.
yeah. It's fucking
So.
great city though. I would love for them to have an awesome team, but it just
Yeah.
feels like some mysterious force is keeping them from ever having like
New Orleans is
eight
like a,
ambulatory basketball players.
as a Saints fan, New Orleans is kind of like one of those. It's just always been one of those like cities where I'm like, I have to go there. I've still never been,
Yeah.
but it's like I have to go because I love jazz. I love the Saints, but I love just like everything about New Orleans. I've never been, and I want to go so badly. But the Pelicans are also just. Oof. The good news is, I feel like tickets can't be that expensive, especially to see like a Raptors game. So if I time it
They can't be.
correctly, they can't be.
They
First of all, the
can't.
Raptors are a trash fire, and second, Raptors tickets are already cheap in the U.S. depending on the city. 'Cause wherever there's like fewer Canadians, they're cheap. So like
They sure as fucking cheap in Toronto though.
no, no,
It's tough.
they're not
They
always
do
cheap.
not have enough wins to be charging them prices, man. They do not have enough wins.
No,
They got one ring and thought they were the Lakers.
MLSE is greedy. Yeah, greedy as fuck. This is an anti Ed Rogers podcast.
They're not gonna sponsor us, so I'm not even really thinking about it. But if Tim Hortons would like to sponsor, I'm willing to say nice things about your donuts. I had one the other day. It was satisfactory. It got the job
Yeah,
done.
yeah. It's a donut. It's a port in a storm.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It was so mirage in the desert, man.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But
Oh, for the Eastern Conference.
Sorry, I was like, wait, we have more on this award, actually. Not just the
For
Pelicans
the
being cursed.
the
Another cursed
Eastern
franchise,
Conference, and it's
actually.
not a science award. We've got the Philadelphia 76ers.
Another cursed
Who,
friend. Another cursed franchise.
man,
Oh my god.
let's build the foundation of this team out of Joel Embiid and Paul George, two guys who are available. Like their availability is like 2 out of every 4 weeks ish, roundabout. Usually not at the same time. Their schedules don't sync up. So
Yeah.
if you get them both, that's knock on wood a couple times. Uh,
Yeah. It's not
good
great.
fortune maybe coming your way.
It's not great. It's not what you want, that's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. I mean, Podcast P is out there not looking like his normal self, unfortunately, for the Sixers, who they seem to be in a perfect situation going into the season. I mean, they had Maxey playing out of his mind in the playoffs last year, and Embiid is a former MVP, and they're going to just add Paul George on straight cap space. Like, that almost seemed unfair. It was like, oh my God, like the foundation of this team is going to be, this going to be one of the best big threes that we've seen recently. And they have a losing record, so.
And
That's tough.
it's definitely injuries, but I think that's also exposed a lot of flaws in the roster as well.
Jared McCain out hurt too.
Yeah.
The rookie who they got, late first round, and he's looked like a revelation. He looked like the front runner for rookie of the year. He's hurt too for the season. Like
The injuries, the injuries have been tough. It's almost like Dr. Leo Spaceman is the team doctor.
He may well be.
I mean,
The Pelicans doctor does like bloodletting and shit. He's not like he's still putting leeches on people when they get a cold.
yeah. Like Spaceman, in 30 Rock, the shit that he's putting, like, Tracy on. All the drugs that Tracy's on because of Spaceman. That's basically what's happening, I'm sure, to the Sixers. I'm positive.
That's tough.
I am positive.
Like I'm looking at the last Pelicans box score. Zion, team suspension, just came back from injury game or two before. Troy Murphy III, out injury/illness. Herb Jones, injury/illness. Brandon Ingram, injury/illness.
Oh my god.
Like, dog. That's
Reading?
Like 50%, that's like 60% of your minutes. Like,
reading
you know what I mean?
reading the Pelicans injury report is like reading a horror novel. It's like, what?
Yeah.
What? It's like anatomy class. You're like, I didn't know these bones existed, or these areas existed.
One of those like alien invasion sci-fi books where it's like, and now the Statue of Liberty has fallen too, and then the Golden Gate Bridge. It's like, oh my God, what have they left for us? Like it's terrifying.
It's
terrifying.
awful. Yeah. Like, it reminds me too of it's almost the opposite though. So it's like, The Simpsons when Smithers, they find out everything is wrong with him and that's why he's still alive.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the Pelicans can't, as soon as they get too healthy or something, it's like, I don't know. They're the opposite, but it just reminds me of that where it's like everything is wrong and that's the only way we're alive. And it's like the Pelicans can't exist without everything being wrong.
It's a curse. I don't know what has to happen to lift it. I don't know if they have to slay a rival team's player, if they have to go back to Charlotte and right some wrong that they did to some team employee back when the Hornets were back and forth. I don't know what they got to do, but something's got to happen. It's outrageous.
Something's got to give.
It's supernatural. I don't like it.
It's very Chargery.
Yeah, the Chargers are not allowed to win playoff games.
The Chargers cannot have nice things. Ever. Anyways, another team who can't have nice things. This next award is the from The Good Place. Little Good Place reference here. A lot of Michael Schur content on this episode, actually. Anyway, from The Good Place, this is the There's No Problem We Can't Create award, and it's going to the Minnesota Timberwolves. Because it just seems like they can't let themselves have nice things ever. They're a bit Sunsy in the sense that it's like they have one good year and then they just fuck it up. I mean, first of all, the trade for Rudy Gobert was probably a little bit sus in the first place. But whatever, it worked out. They had a great season last season. They got to the conference finals. Big win for them. Anthony Edwards is a bona fide stud. Cat looks like he's the perfect kind of superstar. And then they go and fucking blow it up for the Julius Randle experience, which we've discussed already at it's a time. So it's... Yeah, and Wolves fans, they've been tortured for decades. Every time something good happens, 5 bad things have to happen. It's in the contractual obligation of being a Timberwolves fan, I think, is that you have to be the most tortured soul imaginable.
Had two number
And
one picks, and they had Kevin Garnett, an MVP, and they have never made an NBA Finals before.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, there's no problem that they can't create is because it just it's there is never a moment where they can allow themselves. They just can't get out of their own way ever. It's
It's
quite
tough.
sad, frankly.
It's tough.
It's tough, but
The
anyways,
vibes have been the best they've been in decades last
yeah.
season, and they were like, "What if we blow it up before the next season even starts?"
It's not great,
Free Dante, free Dante.
man.
Bring him back home. I don't know how the salaries are gonna work, but just do it. Pay him under the table. I don't give a shit.
Can you imagine how all those people who got Nas Reed tattoos are gonna feel if Nas Reed leaves?
They might decide to switch teams or move with Nas Reed. Like you know how like Deadheads used to follow the Grateful Dead around the country. Just go wherever Nas Reed goes.
I'm not gonna lie. If I was a Timberwolves fan, I probably would have gotten a Nas Reed tattoo.
He seemed tattoo worthy last year. He really did.
It's not even. It's like partly that, but it's also just like I'm the queen of rando ass tattoos. Sometimes you're like, I just want that, so I'm gonna get it, and that feels like a tattoo that I would put on my body.
I'm not
I'm
I'm
not a
not
Wolves
like
fan
that.
though, so I wouldn't.
I ain't getting some random. I ain't getting an NBA player's face tattooed on my body. I'm not getting LeBron or whatever. Like I'm not built like that. But
No, no, that's the best part. It wasn't his face. It was literally his name, like in Times New Roman,
just
like
and like
just Nas
generic
Reed. Yeah,
Microsoft Word.
like it's literally like the Times New Roman that this tattoo is in.
That's
And we have
amazing.
video, so now I can actually show
That's
this.
amazing.
Yes,
That's
my
amazing.
my nerdy Times New Roman tattoo. It was literally just Nas Reed. Period. There was a period.
Yeah.
Good grammar.
There was
Yeah,
it's a complete sentence. Nas,
yeah,
noun, read, verb.
yeah, yeah. It was an incredible
Amazing.
tattoo,
Amazing.
and the guy who did it, he did like hundreds of them. It was really cool. Yeah.
That's. Do you think those people like hang out with each other? Do you think like this is a
No,
dork ass reference? You might not get this one, but like uh,
no.
in Final Fantasy VII, there's a bunch of people who are clones of Sephiroth, and they like cross the world for like a reunion of sorts. It's very weird anime sci-fi shit, but like I wonder if they, gather together once a year in black robes and like they like pull their tattoos out and I don't know, look at the sky or something, talk about whatever it is they talk about.
Maybe they do that at Timberwolves games.
I'm so sorry for that. That was me referencing a video game from like 1990 fucking seven. Like that was a little obscure, but that's not an obscure
You
game. But it might feel obscure in this context.
you lost me at Final Fantasy. I got that part, and then
It's good
after
shit. It's
that,
good shit. It's
after
good shit.
after Final Fantasy, I was like, I have played a Final Fantasy game. Do not remember which one.
That's what's up.
Anyways, this is the point of the podcast where the prosecco is kicking in. Anyways, I kind of wish. I've always thought about getting like a Raptors tattoo of some kind, but like I don't want anything cheesy. I just want something like simple. I thought about just getting like the Larry O'Brien with just like the little date, just like a little tiny tattoo, just kind of similar to this one, just like just a little Larry O'B. But yeah, we'll see.
Do you
Probably
think
not.
this might be unkind to the Raptors, but do you think there's ever going to be a day when people are like, "Wait, the Raptors won a championship," or do you think they're going to be like a perennial like good franchise in the future?
Well, whether or not we win another championship is whatever. Honestly, I obviously want us to, but I would be.
Right.
But who knows? I mean, that shit's fickle. I think that the team is important enough culturally to the fact that even if Canada gets more franchises, that they were the first and they were the most successful because they were the first to win a championship. I think that people will always remember that, and I think that they do have it in their DNA to be a pretty good franchise. But it's also in their DNA to be a bad franchise, for sure. But I think, provided ownership remains relatively stable, which it did for those years that we were winning, there's always hope that we'll be a perennially decent franchise, at least. I think the Raptors will always have some kind of direction and they'll have to remain modern because that's another thing the franchise has to do, I think, as long as especially they're still the only franchise in Canada and still just being outside of the US. I think they have to be a modern, like, forward-thinking franchise. So I'd like to have hope that they will be a perennially, like, decent franchise, whether or not we're winning all the time, whatever. It's hard. It's hard to win in the NBA, so hard to predict that, but at least not a bottom feeder disaster like Charlotte or something, or the Wizards or something like that. I don't see that happening. I just think there's a bit too much competence in Toronto now, and especially because we've seen success, and I don't think people want to go back to what it was before that. So I think there's a motivation to be
I
decent.
As much as I'm sure you prefer a team in Alberta somewhere, I think it'd be cool to see an expansion team in Montreal or something
I
because,
agree.
like, you know how the Raptors love to sign or trade for a Canadian player for civic pride and all that, and the Raptors 905, the G League team, also employs several Canadian players, like more than is like
Yeah.
expected from given like the percentage of players in the league who are Canadian. I feel like a Montreal team all those like French dudes, they're trying to get all of them. Like they're drafting out of
Well,
France every year.
I mean, shit, like Benedict Mathurin, Chris
There's
Boucher,
some Quebecers who
Lou
are good players
Dort.
too. Yep.
Montreal has a very like strong basketball culture, so I do think
Hmm.
that Montreal would actually be the next natural. So
Yeah.
when the Raptors play their Canada series, so which is their preseason games, they play in different cities
Yep.
across Canada. I mean they sell out everywhere because there's enough
Yeah.
Raptors fans across the country. But Montreal is a really big one that they do every year because it's a really
Right.
big stop. I mean, it's also geographically close to Toronto, so that helps. But
Yeah.
it's a very popular city, and there's a
Yeah.
huge community of basketball fans and players. So it would be
Right.
the next natural kind of stuff because it's similar culturally to Toronto
Right.
in ways in terms of just being a very like first of all populous, just actually has a lot of people in it. So therefore, more people, more interests, and it's super diverse. It's a sports city too. Frankly, Montreal takes pride, right? They're passionate about sports, so.
I do think, yeah, like you said, there's a lot of good players coming out of Montreal, obviously, but as far as like no like superstars yet, but I do think any francophone NBA player, whether they're from like some parts of West Africa or from France itself or from somewhere in like French Caribbean territories
They're
and stuff
actually
like
mostly
that,
Haitian, yeah.
you know they be trying to get them. You know they be trying to get them. Like
Yep.
if Joel Embiid hits free agency ever, the Montreal team will be like, hey,
Cameroon. Yeah.
come on home. You can speak French all day.
Yeah, well, he chose to play with the US, so I don't think that that would really work on
He
him.
said he did it for his son.
Yeah, okay, sure.
Son is a Yank like me apparently, but
Uh-huh,
yeah, no, that
sure.
was I know they're pissed. They're pissed at him like how the Italians are pissed at Paolo Banchero for choosing the Americans over the Italians.
Yeah. I'm also pissed, frankly, at Palo.
Yeah, I mean he went to play for like their fucking like C team too, not even like you know what I mean,
Yeah,
the World Championships team, the FIBA World Cup team.
right? Yeah. I do, yeah, sorry, Montreal. That's what we're talking about. I do think Montreal would be the best destination. I just don't think Vancouver has enough. I mean, it would be better now, probably. I think Vancouver now versus when Vancouver had the Grizzlies is totally different. But I think Montreal culturally still makes the most sense.
Yeah,
Basketball's still way bigger in the East than it is out West, frankly.
yeah, Vancouver already didn't go the way people thought it would go,
Well, the
unfortunately.
interesting thing about basketball in the West is that it's honestly like concentrated in terms of talent and like passion in the prairies. But
Yep.
none of us are big enough, frankly, to like deal with an NBA team. Or Winnipeg
Yeah,
would be kind of one of the only. I mean, in theory, like infrastructure wise, we could
right.
because we have NHL
Calgary's as
teams.
big as like Memphis.
Yeah, and we have NHL teams, so it's not like we don't have stadiums and shit.
Right.
It's just that basketball is really popular at like a college level and not necessarily from a fandom level. It's just in terms of people
Right.
playing. It's still not hockey. It's still not huge here. But I mean, the WNBA game in Edmonton, they sold 17,000 tickets. So it's not like it's impossible. People would show
Right.
up. I mean, a lot of those people probably did travel, but I mean, people would show up to a game. I think a city like Winnipeg, weirdly, would actually be the best of any prairie city just because as a city, they have a very passionate sports culture. Actually really crazy. They go hard. So they consistently set attendance records for their CEBL team, which is not really anything super special, but
Mm.
they sell out where the Jets play for that, for like, a not NBA team. So, they'd show up for an NBA team, but realistically, I just don't think it would happen. You'd have to do it in a city like Vancouver, Montreal, because players would not come here either. Let's be real.
I
Uh,
mean, yeah, I heard the winters in Montreal are not
tough.
that great.
They're
Not great.
very snowy. It's very snowy there.
I heard it gets cold as a motherfucker out there.
Vancouver has like the best climate in terms of attracting people.
That's funny because the best climate in the country is still not a great climate. To be honest.
No.
That
Well,
Seattle-esque weather that nobody
actually,
No,
It's not.
unfortunately, nobody in the U.S. has ever been like, man, I would love to go to Seattle for the weather. Like that's where the
Yeah.
bar is at for
The
Canadian
thing
weather.
the thing with Vancouver though is that it's not actually the nicest climate in Canada. It's just the nicest winter in terms of like probably the
Right,
least amount of snow.
right. Least
But
frozen
like
city.
in terms of like actual getting like, heat and like nice in the summer is like in the interior of BC it gets hot. Like you're kind
Hmm.
of yeah. And it's like it's nice, the lakes and shit, but it's where all the wine comes from. It's a
I
good
fuck with
place.
lakes.
Yeah. Anyways, I guess we should continue on this journey. We're almost done. You can tell the wine's kicking in because we're like getting distracted. Um, so we've actually got another. So the finest work award for Giannis was a Dundee from The Office, and we actually have another Dundee, and this one is the hottest in the Office award, which consistently went to Ryan. I think for like 5 years in a row or something. But we're actually gonna give it to Victor Wembanyama because he seems to be the hottest player in the NBA these days in terms of just. I mean,
Hector
since
Banana
he
Bread.
Hector Banana Bread. Oh my god, amazing! I hope that's his nickname forever. I hope he
It needs to be on
leans.
his basketball reference page. It's gonna
Yeah,
go up there with Dirk Nowitzki being tall baller from the G. It's gonna go in
yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
league annals forever.
Forever, it has to. I will be disappointed. Um, yeah. Anyways, Wemby is like his second season in the NBA is it's living up to the hype. There was a bit of concern about the Spurs at the beginning of the season, and especially about Wemby shooting a shitload of threes, and that's still, I guess, a concern. But at the end of the day, like that's also what he's supposed to do at this point in his career. Like the Spurs, this is probably their last chance to kind of be bad, for the rest of his career. So it's okay to let him flex his developmental muscles and try new things. And the Chris Paul effect has been very real down in San
Yes.
Antonio.
Big adult in the room vibes, you know what I mean? A team
Yeah,
that had kind of been like listless and kind of trying to figure shit out for a while.
yeah,
He's got them playing real basketball. Also, man, well, in real time just now, I was looking up NBA leaders for blocks per game. So, Chet Holmgren, who hasn't played much this season, second place at 2.6 blocks per game, right? Over a
yeah.
really, really, really small sample. Number one, Victor Wembanyama at blocks per game. A whole 1.4 more than second place. 4 blocks per game in like the space and pace era where the paint is wide the fuck open and it's really hard to play help defense. 4 goddamn blocks per game.
That's fucking crazy.
He could block my shot right now in Toronto from wherever the fuck he is at the
Yeah,
moment. His arms so long.
it's frightening. He's so I don't know. Like he act. Kevin Durant got called the Slim Reaper, but it actually might be Wemby because Wemby's coming to block your shit. It's
It's like the approach of death, right? Like it kind of
yeah,
feels you think you're chilling on some like final destination shit. You're like, man, look at me. I'm on this roller coaster. I'm having a good time. You're on the fast break. You've got a wide open layup. There's nobody near you. You go up, you put a little extra spin on it, little extra wrist motion because you're feeling spicy, and then you blink, and oh my God, is that ball in the fourth row of the audience? Like
yep,
Victor Wembanyama has descended from the sky and punched your shit into outer space. Like it's really unfortunate.
yeah. It's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy. It's yeah, basketball aliens out there. I don't know. I'm honestly at a loss for words on some level. So I don't know. I just think that he is now the hottest player in the NBA. Therefore, he
It's
is
it's it's wild
hottest in
about
the
him, like
office.
as a defensive player. It's like these are obviously very different people, very different players, different sports too. But like that like Ray Lewis effect where a receiver's coming over the middle of the field and he fucking knows Ray Lewis is there.
Yeah,
So when the ball comes to him in that tough area in the middle, he's like a little nervy. He's not looking at the ball. He's trying to
Ray
find where Ray
Lewis.
Lewis is so he doesn't
Yeah,
get his chest caved in. He's thinking about protecting his body instead of reeling in the catch. It's like that with Wemby. I've seen plays where dudes have been wide the fuck open in the paint and they get there and they've actually got the shot and he's not really quite there yet, but they think, oh my God, he might be around. Do I hear his footsteps right now? And they don't go for the layup and they just pull it out and just dribble out to the perimeter. He has that like strike fear in your heart quality that
absolutely.
that the great middle linebackers of the NFL had.
Yep.
in like the hit people directly in the head with no consequences era.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, he instills the fear in you for sure. There's an
Yep.
intimidation factor in the fact that his arms are as long as your body. So, yeah, it's wild. Wild shit. And I'm happy to see Pop back on the bench for what it's worth as well.
Yeah, it's great to see him make a full recovery. I'm sure he would appreciate a nice bottle of prosecco rosé.
Probably, yeah. I'm sure he drinks this shit for breakfast.
Now you're making him sound like an alcoholic and not just a wine appreciator.
No, just this is like his breakfast wine. It's just this is just the on hand cheap shit he serves to people, you know?
If you put some orange juice in, it's breakfast. You know what I mean? It's like the food equivalent of like if you put bacon on something, that burger is breakfast now.
Yeah, it is a breakfast food.
If you put some orange juice in your prosecco and
It's a
some
breakfast
mimosa,
food.
now you having breakfast.
It's a breakfast food. Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. Absolutely. All right, so we finish these out. So we've got a couple more. Well, on to you.
We have the Duke Deuce Crunk Ain't Dead award. We're giving to the Detroit Pistons, who look to be on life support. The Monty Williams era was a fucking disaster. Number one pick Cade Cunningham was putting up numbers for a team that looked like they were fucking lost.
After battling with a ton of
Man,
injuries.
oh
Yeah.
my goodness, they are back. They are a real team. They're eighth in the East. They have a winning record for the first time since. I'm not gonna look it up, but I can tell you with confidence it was a long time ago. Certainly not this late in the season. I'm sure they've had some 1-0, maybe 2-1 records in the last handful of years, but they really might be in the playoffs. Like not just the play in. They
Believe
might
it
make
or
the
not.
playoffs.
Believe it
If
or
you ask
not.
me who's gonna win that play in, Miami or Detroit right now, I might take Detroit over Atlanta and Chicago too. Like those are the other teams in the playing spots
Depends
right
who's
now.
still
I
on
might
the
take
Heat
Detroit.
roster. Depends who's still on the Heat roster, but yeah.
Yeah, if it's Bradley Beal instead of Jimmy Butler, I am definitely taking the Detroit Pistons.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
they're the
yeah.
real deal.
It's been
Cade
fun to
is a
see.
monster.
It's pretty crazy how to see the lows that they hit last year, setting the
Hmm.
all-time losing streak, to this year, where they have more wins currently than they had all of last season, I think. And it's pretty wild. I didn't think the Monty Williams situation could go that bad, and then it went that bad. It went worse than I ever anticipated it could go.
Worse than anyone anticipated. And like Kate
I just
Cunningham,
don't.
like when he went number one, it was kind of a weaker draft. I thought he might be like a fringe all-star kind of guy, maybe like 5, 6 all-star games. He's looking kind of number one pickish lately. He's
It's
looking,
taken some time for that draft to come along, because like
yeah.
you got Cade at one, who struggled with injuries and playing for just an
Hmm.
absolute terrible team. You've got Jalen
Hmm.
Suggs in Orlando, who's been. It took him some time again. Still kind of
Yep.
finding his shooting, but he's been a very good defender. He plays defense like he plays football because he is a football player. I love
Yep.
it. But
Him,
he's
him and
taken.
Deuce McBride, the two former football guys who just fucking
Yeah,
get in your jersey.
they play like it. But he's been fun. He's picked it up. He's gotten his shit. He's figured it out. Just took a little
Hmm.
time. Then you've got Evan Mobley in Cleveland, who has
Yep.
taken some time. And something
Yep.
we forgot to mention too with the Cleveland situation is like it's not just a matter of coaching, but like players like Karis LeVert, Evan Mobley, like they've taken steps forward, right? Those are
Yep.
big improvements. And then at four, you've got Scotty Barnes in Toronto, who has been. I mean, he was rookie of the year, so he was good right away. But he's taken some time to grow into the player that Toronto needs him to be, and some of that's been the roster fluctuating quite a lot around him. But the draft wasn't necessarily a bad draft. The top four players are panning out. It's just taking time for it to happen.
Yeah, it's been a lot of players on the fringes. They've hit some like pretty decent pickups. Like Malik Beasley has been. I don't think I've seen him miss a shot this season. I know the stats say he's shooting a shade under 40% from three.
But
I certainly
anecdotally,
haven't
he's
witnessed
never
anybody.
missed. Yeah, he's never
Yeah,
missed.
anecdotally, he's shooting about 125% from three,
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
pretty impressive.
Quite literally
Even
on
without
fuego.
Jaden Ivey, Ivy's shooting 40% from three. Like, and he's out unfortunately hurt
Brother,
now,
that
but
injury.
a it was bad. It was bad. Jalen
Ugly.
Suggs involved in the injury. He was diving for the ball and collapsed Jaden Ivey's leg. But man, Cade 24, a shade under 7, and 9.5 assists.
Yeah.
Like I didn't know he was a 10 assist guy. I knew he was a playmaker. I didn't know he was a 10 assist guy.
To
Yeah,
be
his
fair,
team is good
though, I
enough.
don't think he's ever really had the horses around him to be a 10 assist guy. Because the thing about
Yeah.
assists is that you have to have somebody on the other end of the pass to actually make the play. And so, I mean, that's always been my biggest gripe in Denver, to be honest, is that Jokic probably could average like 20 fucking assists if people made their shots. Like, you know,
Doesn't hurt. Yeah.
it helps. And so with Cade, when he's had talent around him, like his high school stats were always amazing because he had Evan Mobley and Scotty Barnes.
On the same high school team. That's how.
Well, he for sure played with Scotty in high school. I'm pretty sure
That's
Evan
crazy.
Mobley was in the same.
I hope they
But
only
yeah, he
played in
played with
regular high schools. I hope they only played like
it
IMG
was
Academy
it was
esque
like
weird ass
prep.
schools.
It was prep stuff like
Okay,
Montverde and
yeah.
stuff. Yeah, but yeah,
Yeah, if they played like Thomas Jefferson High or some shit, that would be just criminal.
yeah. No, Scotty and Cade played together. I'm pretty sure Evan Mobley did too. Not 100%, but I know Cade and Scotty did because every time there's a Raptors Pistons game, they talk about it. But I think other thing too, is like point guards take longer to develop in both the NBA and the W, but it's just generally speaking, kind of a harder position to like play. And I feel like center and point guard are two of the harder positions to develop in. Because center, it's not so much about your offensive skills, but it's your defensive anchoring and stuff that takes the time to settle into that. And if you're never like a good defensive, like a player like Jokic, like he's never going to be an amazing defender, but it took him, he got a lot better at the mental side because he at least leaned into his strengths. He knows he's a very smart player. So if he leans really hard into the mental aspect of defense, it will help. Same thing with like even a player like Cat, not really great on defense, but if he leans into effort, he can at least make it like
Like
a
a
dent.
Marcus Sol, right? Like
Yeah.
not super fleet of foot, but really good positioning. He's also
Mm-hmm.
just big as hell, which also helps. So
Size never hurts. Yeah, it's hard to
yeah,
shoot around a 7 footer like
yeah.
him.
Wasn't trying to
So
block shots, just trying to get in the way, and that's
exactly.
half the battle.
Yeah. So with centers, I think it takes time to develop into that like that role. Whereas with point guards, it's how to run an offense is hard, man. It's a lot, and especially in the NBA, especially if you're a rookie or like a young player and you're managing other veterans or other young players who don't know what the hell they're doing. With veterans, it's like you have to a lot of pressures on you to make sure that they know where they are. But with rookies and young players, like they don't know where they're supposed to be. So like everyone's learning together, and that's been a thing in Detroit for sure. They've had a lot of young players. I mean, Jalen Duren is incredible as a shot blocker. He has no fear, and he's an amazing defender. But it's, and he's super young, so he has a lot of runway with him. Isaiah Stewart needs to stop fighting people soon. That would be ideal, because those suspensions are going to add up real fast.
Yeah, once you get to a certain number, they start suspending you over like you look at somebody a little too aggressively. You get the reputation,
Yeah.
the reputation technicals, the reputation flagrants. People start to
Mans,
assume your attention, so you gotta watch out for those.
Mans needs to stop throwing his hands, because it's getting a little out of control.
At least not on the court. Like I
Yeah.
can't I can't regulate your life outside of basketball, but maybe don't punch people on the court. Like I don't know.
It's pretty tough. But yeah, no, the Pistons are actually back-ish. And it's nice to see. Um, Detroit basketball is what it is, but I'm happy for my friends in Michigan who are Pistons fans.
Glad the team's in the city again too, because my parents were in Michigan, we had to go see them in Auburn Hills, which is
Yeah, forever
it was
away.
kind of one of those like signs of decline of Detroit type of things where the nearest shopping mall was in Auburn Hills and not in Detroit. The basketball team
Yeah.
was in Auburn Hills and not Detroit. And so it's cool seeing shit coming back to the city.
Mm-hmm.
I am a noted Detroit defender. Even when I was there 10 years ago, when things were looking down, I still liked Detroit. Like I enjoyed my time there. People were
It's a
cool.
city I've always wanted to go to. I want to go to the Motown Museum really bad.
One of the best museums I've been to in my life, and I've been to some noteworthy museums. I've been to like the Louvre. I've been to the fucking Torture Museum in San Gimignano. I've been to like I've been to the Palace Museum in Taipei. I love the Motown Museum. It's incredible.
A
It's the
friend
only
of
museum
mine,
I've ever been to where people will fucking spontaneously sing songs because they're so moved by the joints from like the 70s and 80s that they
yeah, yeah.
love. It's really dope. The experience is amazing. And
Oh
it's just a
yeah,
house.
no, I
It's
want
just
to
a
go so
house.
bad. A friend of mine who actually will be a future guest on this podcast, but she does a whiskey podcast. She went to Detroit for a wedding, I think. I don't know.
Yep.
Anyway, she went to the Motown Museum and she said it was like the greatest. She's from Scotland and she's like,
Yep.
I like Motown, but it's not my favorite thing in the world. But she's like, the museum was the greatest, and I love Motown personally, like a ton.
Mm.
So I'm super excited if I get to go. And we My partner and I have some good friends in Michigan, the Michigan lesbians, as we refer to them. Yeah, we're the Calgary lesbians. We can't even be the Canadian lesbians because they know too many in Canada. It's crazy. Got to get
Yeah.
specific for them. Yeah.
Shout out to
Um,
Canada.
Shout out Canadian lesbians. Woo. Anyways, they're good people, and we definitely want to go visit them. So, but I'd love to go to Detroit for sure. It's always kind of been high on my list. It's one of those cities where I'm like, it can't be. I guess I've always viewed Detroit and Chicago as two cities where I felt like there's no way they can be as bad as they're described. And even if shit isn't good there, there's still lots of great things. You know, like there's never, not everything is always bad. I guess because I've always come from places where people are like, oh, why would you go there or live there? You always find redeeming qualities in places. And I like to travel to places that are not necessarily the most like glamorous or tourist. You know, people don't go out of their way to go there, but you can always find good things. I always look at it like you get out of it what you put into it, right?
If you want to get good Middle Eastern food, but you don't necessarily have it logistically in you to like leave North America and travel all the way to the Middle East because it's far and expensive to fly out there. Detroit, man, you want good Lebanese food, Detroit,
Yeah, I bet.
the place to go, the place to go.
Yeah, I bet.
It's also
And
the inventor
that's,
of a very famous pizza style that is also apparently taking over Canada now. You see them
it
shits all over
is.
the place.
Yeah, Detroit style pizza's gotten popular. But
I've had
it's,
Detroit style pizza in Hawaii.
but yeah, I don't know. I've always been a fan of just like, just because you're going somewhere that's not necessarily like known as the most glamorous city ever, like it's fine. One of my favorite episodes actually of Top Gear, like the old school Top Gear with Jeremy and them, was when they went to Detroit and like
Mm.
did kind of just like some. They basically just like drag races in the middle of the city and like abandoned parts of the city, but they did a lot of. They love Detroit, and it was really cool to see them kind of pour some love into the city and stuff too.
Yeah.
So, and it's nice to see the Pistons back because I think the Pistons. They've always been one of those franchises that just has such a cool aura about them,
Mm.
and they're either super shitty or cool because of that aura, and there's really not a lot of in between.
Yeah, the Wallace era Pistons were one of my favorite basketball teams of the last of my lifetime, honestly. When they
Yeah.
had Ben and Rashid, that was a fucking cool team. Extremely cool team. Championship without a single 20 point per game score on it, man. Like that's gritty ass team. Ben Wallace was who I wanted to be when I was in high school playing
I
basketball.
love Ben
Like I
Wallace. Yeah.
afro was grown out. I had like the sweatbands and shit. Like that's what I was trying to be like. Of course, I was 6'2" and not 6'9", but you know, that is neither here nor there.
I Rasheed Wallace, love that man. I love him so much. Like he's just one of those like random NBA players that I'm like, man, I fucking love Sheed. Like just
Both
fuck.
teams played hard.
Yeah, yeah. I love him. I love him so much. And yeah, I love Ben Wallace. Like I love that team. But yeah, the Pistons are either like they're fun to root for when they're good,
Yeah.
right? Like when they're good, you're like, yeah, I kind of want to cheer for you. You're fun. Although right now, I will admit I'm struggling with the current iteration of the Pistons in terms of that sort of situation where I'm like, do I want to cheer for you yet? I think maybe I don't know how to feel about it yet because they've been so bad and so disjointed.
Hmm.
It's taking some time. But generally speaking, when the Pistons are good, you want to cheer for them. So I'm rooting for the Pistons. Anyways,
Raptors have one away win this year. I'm sorry, I just looked at the standings to see where the Pistons are at. I
it's
saw the
not
Raptors have
great.
won
Yeah,
18 on the road. That's tough.
it's not great. Anyways, why don't you finish off the last of these awards?
I sure forgot where this reference was from, but we have the maximum effort award.
Deadpool. Yeah, the Deadpool Maximum Effort Award.
Yeah, there was one player who was really obvious for this one. It's got to be Josh Hart.
Yeah.
There's even like memes going around the internet about how ridiculously hard he plays. There's the one where it's like every time Josh Hart sees an available rebound, and it's a dude just diving head first like off a fucking bridge. Like he is a maniac on the court. By his own admission, he's like, I don't even box out. I just go get the ball when rebounds are available. If you're 6'4" and you're constantly getting like 9 boards a night, again when you're playing backup power forward last year and shit like that, it fast break every time he gets a defensive board, runs it up, does the same move, and still wins every single time. Uh, there was a stat a bit ago. I don't know if it's still current because this was a few weeks back, but it was like shooting percentage of the rim, and it was like 5 centers at the top of the league and Josh Hart, who was like number two. Like, there's no reason
Yeah.
that somebody his height with he doesn't have crazy super long arms or anything, but he gets it done, and it's nothing complicated. He just goes into your chest. It's
He
very
gives
Marshawn
me
Lynchian, just run through a motherfucker's face and score.
pretty much. It gives me very strong like Dennis Rodman vibes in the sense of just like he's just gonna go for it. Like it's all heart and tenacity. I mean, Dennis Rodman obviously had a skill too, and so does Josh Hart, but it's totally just like a tenacity and like it's very much an effort thing. You just see it
Mhm.
in him, and it's fun because he's not honestly great at one particular thing. He's just really good at filling in.
Mhm.
I don't know. Just one of
He's
those
a weird
players.
player.
Yeah.
Some people just know where that ball is going to bounce when it comes off the rim without
Yeah.
having to like actually react to it. They just tell him where the shot's coming in and where it's going to go, and he's just like, I want to get that shit more than you want to get that shit. But there
Yeah.
was a game a few weeks back where he iced the game with consecutive offensive boards. Like the Knicks had the ball last, time for one more shot. They were up by like a shot bricked. Josh Hart goes and just snatches a loose ball, kicks it back out. Another shot bricks. Josh Hart gets the ball back again. Like he broke the other team with just straight hustle.
Yeah.
It wasn't anything crazy. It wasn't like a size advantage or an athleticism advantage. He just broke the other team and won the game by just playing harder than the other team. And sometimes some guys aren't just not ready for that.
They're often not ready for a 6'4" bowling ball of a human coming into your body.
He is, yeah. When you see him in person, you realize, wait, he's jacked. Like you don't really conceptualize of that when he's on the court, like on TV. Like no, he's actually ripped.
He's a strong ass man. He
Yeah.
is like the platonic form of a Tibbs player.
Honestly, I think Tibbs might have made him in a lab, but the funny part is I know Josh Hart drives him crazy with the complaining and like
Ah,
not being
yeah.
all the stories about how he does not like to play hard in practice. I know he drives Tibbs nuts, and I've heard stories about how he drove him nuts his first season on the Knicks. But he's also the most Tibbsian player who has maybe ever
Yeah.
existed. Like maybe even more so than Jimmy Butler,
Yeah.
maybe even more so than Derrick Rose.
Yeah, for sure. No, he's like the platonic ideal of a Tibbs player, but yeah, pisses Tibbs off, obviously. But
Yeah.
it's just funny how Josh Hart got fully unlocked as a player as soon as he got to Tibbs because he just fits everything that Tibbs believes in basketball.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty fun. I love it. So, I guess, yeah, that's our mid-season award list. We got through quite a lot. And obviously, as you can all tell, they were very pop culture slanted. But that's just, pop culture is, I don't know, it's really important to me. I have a Simpsons tattoo. So, I have a whole arm dedicated to pop culture tattoos. These things matter to me. And I
Yeah,
know
I
they,
didn't want to get into like fucking tape breakdowns or like,
no.
win shares over replacement or whatever. Like, I was just like, man, let's just fucking have a time with this.
I'm not going to lie to you, that's not what we do on Wine and Dime, because frankly, we're too drunk for numbers. Or at least I am. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, even when I'm
I
sober,
successfully pronounced most of the words I've said today, so that's
even
we're
when
doing
I'm
pretty good.
even when I'm sober, I'm too drunk for numbers because I'm a philosopher and I was not built for numbers.
I'm also in liberal arts school, so
Yeah, you
whatever.
you give me a narrative argument and baby, I got your back. But numbers, oof, I'm gonna Homer Simpson into the bushes real hard. Like, ooh, I
Yeah.
was never here. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyways, since we're a wine podcast too, what do we think of this prosecco?
Honestly, very good. It's a pretty easy one.
Bottle check. Are
It's
you done? Are you done yours? Okay.
almost. I got some in the glass still, but the remainder of it's in the glass. Yeah, I actually really enjoy it. I am actually getting some of the tasting notes that are on the bottle, like the strawberry and the rose petal. I was like, when I saw it, I was like, I'm not gonna taste rose petal, but you
No,
know
you
what?
do.
Yeah.
There's like there's something about floral notes, especially rose, that it's not a very distinct flavor. It's hard to describe, but as soon as you taste it, you're like, oh, there it is. You know it immediately, but it's hard to like put your finger on exactly what it tastes like. Like if you describe what rose tastes like, I can't do it, but I know what it tastes like. It's very strawberries and cream as well. You can taste a lot of that like really red, sort of like juicy red fruit at the front, but in a classic prosecco style, it's very chill and very dry. It's really good.
Did you go to Ruffino? Didn't
I
you?
did. Yeah, I did.
I was
Yeah.
about to say. I thought
That
that was the
was
one you went to. Yeah.
yeah. Spoiler alert, this is where I went to, and well, I didn't go to where they produce the prosecco, but I went to Italy, to Ruffino. So, full disclosure, I work for Ruffino. It's a little biased here, but it is one of the better
Yeah.
rosé. Honestly, Ruffino makes some of the best wine on the market in terms of just consistency for the value and yeah, and quality. It's really good. The
Mm.
prosecco, I love the regular prosecco as well, but the rosé prosecco is just so nice because it's a little bit less like acidic and dry. I get you don't get quite that like burn or not like burn, but you know what I mean when you drink prosecco and it's a little harsh sometimes. This has a little bit less of that acidity, so I like the rosé prosecco. It's a little softer. We also haven't really done any rosés on the show yet, so it's kind of time we
It's our first sparkling wine. We actually hit ice wine before we hit sparkling wine.
we hit ice wine before we hit rosé as well.
You know what? We haven't done. Just like ideating for later. We haven't done like a. I think we've mentioned Cabernet a million times. We've not done a Cabernet.
We haven't done a cab yet. No, you're right. We'll get there though. There's plenty of time this winter.
One of
I mean,
these
we
days.
have
It'll
we
it'll
have
be it'll be tan in season before long.
quite the nice part about this podcast is there's lots of wines and lots of episodes. And just because we've had one particular kind of wine doesn't mean that we've had all of them of that. Just because we had like one Pinot Noir doesn't mean we've had all of the Pinot Noirs because that's
Right.
obviously not true. Yeah. Speaking of Pinot Noir though, there's Pinot Noir in this prosecco.
Did not know.
So the rosé blend is Glera and well, Glera is the traditional grape that you use in prosecco, and then Pinot Noir is a very common grape used in rosés, and they used Pinot Noir to create this delicious rosé. So for this, at the end of the episode, the small little educational piece here is that prosecco is a tank sparkling wine. So you add the bubbles in a tank rather than in the bottle like champagne. So we'll touch on champagne, but that's for final season because
Yeah,
only
champagne
win
might be.
only winners drink champagne.
It probably will not be Dom Perignon, but it'll be something.
Even just basic champagne's expensive. That's like the one
It's not gonna
shitty
be fucking Moet
part
and
about
Chandon,
champagne.
man. It's gonna be it's gonna be
Maybe
something else.
could be Moet if
Actually,
you're
Moet's not as
listening.
expensive as I thought it was gonna be when I went to the store
Also,
the other day. I was like, it's not
Moet
that bad.
Moet if you're listening for some fucking reason. If you're listening, please send us some champers for the finals because winners drink champagne.
Yeah. No.
And I mean
And
the
I've
nice part,
I've won at least once. Like I feel like I deserve at least one bottle.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I guess I work for a wine company and we do own a champagne company. I could probably talk to them. That is technically an option. One day. One day I'll make my work crossover with this podcast and we'll get free things. One day.
Hey, there we go. There we go.
That's the dream. Girl's got a dream. But yeah, I don't know. I do think that the rosé though, in all seriousness, just circling back real quick, I do think the rosé aspect in like when you add a rosé element to prosecco, it does help make it a little bit more like less acidic and something that you maybe want to drink a bit more of. Like to sit down and just drink like multiple glasses of prosecco sometimes not always my jam, depending on the prosecco. But the rosé makes it a little smoother. That fruity element is really nice. So definitely good job, Ruffino.
I
Thumbs
like my
up.
glass too, like the little pinkish coloration we got going on here.
Looks nice. Good job, Ruffino. Please bring me back. Yes, bring us back. We'll make it a team trip this time.
I'll
We'll
go
take.
check with my Italian. I'll get it back.
We'll bring you. We'll bring you to Brunello, to Montalcino. Drink some Brunello.
I'll just sell my clothes. The whole luggage bag would just be bottles. The only clothes in there would just be like the ones that I wrap the bottles in to keep them from breaking.
Absolutely. One day we'll get to the Brunello episode. One day. It's gonna be a special
I got my
occasion.
dad one for Christmas. I'm sure it was very nice. Actually, no, I drank it. Let's take it back. We had it for dinner that night. It was very good.
Like, wait. Fair enough. I have a bottle. I have a
I
bottle
forgot
in
if we
my.
drank another one or if we drank that one that night.
Oh yeah, fair enough.
It's good shit. It's good shit.
Never Italian wine never fails.
Ever.
Ever. On that note, I guess let's wrap this up. Any final thoughts on our mid-season awards or the wine, or should we just get out of here and let people have their time back?
I think it might be time to wrap it up. Should be around All-Star break next time we record, which is pretty cool in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
So, we'll see who makes the All-Star teams. I'm sure we'll see a rollicking All-Star game with that weird new format. Hopefully, at least some cool dunks in the dunk contest. That would help.
They gotta save something. Either a dunk contest, all-star, like something's gotta get saved because
Yeah.
I don't even want to talk about All Stars because I hate All Star that much. Like it's gotten to that
Hmm.
point where I'm like, oh god, I want no part of this. I'm like Jokic, where I'm like, please leave me alone.
Right, right.
Let me go hang out with my
Just want the
horses.
break. Just want the break
Yeah,
for a week.
yeah. Let me go hang out with my horses. Yeah. Well, anyways,
Shout out to
so
Cleveland, where I might be this summer. Shout out to the Cleveland Cavaliers, first place in the NBA.
it's the world's their oyster. So with that, yeah, follow us on Instagram, Twitter. Oh, we're also on TikTok now. Same handle at Wine and Dime Pod. The
Yep,
and is AND. There's no ampersand.
yep. Same on
Because
Instagram.
social media hates ampersands. So yeah, follow us on TikTok. Made ice wine martinis. That was our most recent post. So if you want to get boozy when everyone's doing dry January, follow us.
Yep. I've dropped my Twitter down here. I am at Chris Harrison1, aka Lionel Brokey. On
Uh,
Twitter. The number of people who have addressed me by Lionel as if it's my real name, because they didn't get the reference.
that one's on you. My handle
Yep.
is also there below my name. Hellion the First. It's a long story. I'm not gonna explain my handle right now.
I know Richie is famous enough that I think people should get what I'm doing there, but
You would
you know,
fucking hope, but here you are.
it could be generational. I don't know. I might be old.
The kids these days, they don't know Lionel Richie. All
All right, that
right.
about wraps it up for this one. See y'all in 2 weeks. Enjoy.